Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Face Zone. So what do you say? You ready to go on a trip? All right, let's go. Each of us sees through a different lens. The same artwork could be a masterpiece or mud, depending on the museum goer. A referee's call is often disputed by the other team. Where 17th century military engineers envisioned coiled metal as a way to dislodge bullets, vintners saw a corkscrew. Such disparate applications, war and winemaking. 7 billion points of view and growing. The Face Zone is my point of view. A creative space where I reflect on inner and outer worlds. A place where I imagine, draw, and write about it. The resulting pieces could be flashes from fantastical narratives for which you must construct the plot. They could be metaphors, could be puzzles, jokes, commentaries, commands, questions, visions. What connects them is that they all begin with some kind of captioned face to prompt reaction and thought. As much as the material is a window into my worldview, it can also be a mirror reflecting yours, as your particular combination of experiences, values, and beliefs influences the meaning that you take away. Though some of our associations may overlap, they don't have to. The point is to set mind in motion. Toward what and to what end? Well, that's for you to decide. But enjoy the sights along the way. Surreal daydreams to trip your imagination. One of our most salient human characteristics is our capacity for storytelling. Stories entertain, move, and shape us. They document, explain, and instruct. Some narratives are so powerful, so thoroughly internalized by a population, they have a greater impact than bombs. Certainly, many weapons have been discharged in defense of one coveted tale over another. As much sway as stories hold over us, they're an arbitrary force we manufacture. Accounts become so old and well known, we forget they could have followed a different plot line. Imagine if we had access to rough drafts. What if Medusa had a scalp of golden roses and transformed people into pure chi? What if Robert Frost had taken the highway? How about a female Christ? In an alternate version, we may just as easily have spent a childhood leaving quarters under our pillows for the Scab Fairy. A revised manuscript may well alter the course of an entire culture. Advertising employs numerous devices to cast its spell. They'll contrive a problem and then sell you the solution. Maybe impose an artificial time limit on availability. Or the product might sing and dance. The most ridiculous and entertaining commercial trope is when the manufacturer associates impossibly hyperbolic, even metaphysical qualities with the most mundane ingredients. Growing up, the notion that ingesting oat flour with marshmallows brought me closer to Ireland and led to rainbows of good fortune made Lucky Charms magically delicious indeed. The further you look back, the more grandiose the marketers' claims, the more irrational their promises, as protections like the Consumer Bill of Rights were not yet enacted to safeguard against cigarettes that cure throat polyps and lotions that send you to heaven. When life's cold and blue, there's just one thing to do. Eat jolly hot peanuts till there's none left to chew. Ding! A treetop bird drops captured worms into the mouths of chicks as a hungry cat paces below, waiting for any of them to fall. Nearby, ravenous bulldozers devour earth for a shopping center to soon replace the tree. In that future parking lot, a carjacker stalks and strikes unsuspecting customers because the system jacked him. A Pac-Man planet. Each of us predator and prey. As time, the ultimate apex hunter, consumes us all. Eating is as intimate as it gets. The ingesting of organic material through the middle of your face, down into your deep physical core to become temporarily one with the consumed mass. It's even more penetrating than intercourse. And food is so personal that we judge others on their meal choices. Order something gross on a first date, and it could be your last. The fifth grader with the strangest brown bag lunch gets picked on most in the cafeteria. Americans find Southeast Asians offensive for eating dog, even though we eat large dogs called cows, which makes us seem ignorant to Hindus. Shrimp greatly upset me because of their pinkish orange, fingernail-like shells and poop spines. So when I lived in Shanghai, it probably took a month off my life to catch a glimpse of my Chinese office mate aggressively stuffing entire prawns into her mouth until the ends of their shockingly long antenna disappeared into her satisfied expression. In the process of devouring them, she became prawn-like. And I'm sure she'd feel the same about the scrapple I chowed down as a Pennsylvania native. Seeing an animal feed can bring on the same revulsion. The sickest thing about opening a trash can swarming with bugs isn't necessarily the insects themselves, but that they think it's delicious in there. In the moment, that itself justifies the swatting. I mean, if you are what you eat, then those flies are rot-filled maggots unwelcome in our space. One person's haggis is another's honey. Taste is pure subjectivity. Whatever a mangoon is, it's out there somewhere. It's awful, and it's hot, sexy dinner for some ravenous mouth that can't get enough. my cat does this thing where, out of complete, slit-eyed, zen-like tranquility, she suddenly explodes with gymnastic energy all over the place. No transition or apparent reason, just goes from resting, tucked-in loaf position to a bonkers rocket of fur, darting zigzags across the apartment, her tail twitching like an overloaded radar as she chirps some sort of insane feline Morse code channeled from beyond. And I'm not alone. Plenty of pet owners can attest to this ridiculous phenomenon. Most mothers and fathers have seen it too. About age 9, I was around the stove awaiting parentally prepared popcorn. And abruptly as those kernels, I erupted with a burning, arbitrary compulsion to dance in circles and swing my head around in a wild figure 8 pattern, blonde bowl cut, flopping this way and that. It felt entirely necessary, sublime even, but accomplished absolutely nothing besides bringing my head into bloody contact with the corner of the countertop. The surge, an electric impulse sent from the cosmos to fleetingly stir us towards some unknown critical goal. Turbocharged passion, psychic lightning. It's strongest in animals and kids, the purest souls. So it seems like a positive charge. I mean, up until colliding with the kitchen, I was really into that crazy little popcorn dance. If only we had the technology to harness all that random, silly energy, who knows? The way out of our looming fossil fuel crisis could be paved with catnip and high fructose corn syrup. Our lives are a choreography through the abrasion of time. We maneuver about the stage of existence, each experience adding to our spiritual core while simultaneously eroding its container. Just as a pencil shortens with every expressive stroke, a ballerina grinds herself down a little more to stick the next inspiring landing. The same goes for rock climbing, mosh pits, work, love, any act at all. The most significant choice we make each day is how to use ourselves up, on what to spend our fleeting life force. Fully living means dancing toward death with purpose, passion, and style to stick that ultimate landing. Routines are an inevitable necessity. The cosmos works on interconnected unity and repetition. Had I not finally established an official spot for my car keys after the 5th time leaving them somewhere, I might be writing a "do not tow" sign instead of these words. Familiar rhythms crescendo to a beating headache when overplayed, however. I drove one route to work for years on the days I had my keys. Every morning at 6:53 by my dashboard display, I passed the same stoic, mustached, walrus-like construction worker standing at the corner of Motter Avenue and Dill Street, waiting for his ride to an overly familiar gig. The pattern was initially comforting, like a reassurance that I had company in facing the day. Later on, he just bothered me. The tired character and a tired plot. At one point, I stopped seeing him there. I guess it got to him too. We eventually ceased to appreciate even the most spectacular encounters. Once you've lived at a place at the shore for a while, you no longer look out at the ocean. And that upbeat yellow you painted the living room now drives you up the very same walls. Notice how mellow the crowd remains under a ritual Independence Day sky, as though the fireworks were happening on a distant screensaver. Chronic users get low instead of high. The cannabis cloud thickening into a lead blanket. The harder stuff a deathbed. There are some cycles that have to be broken altogether. Certain landmarks that belong in the rearview mirror. You don't revisit quicksand. Perpetual religious conflict only begs the apocalypse. And one colonoscopy is enough. Thanks. Otherwise, a well-timed departure begets a positive return. The best chocolate cake comes at the end of a diet. A forgotten view takes your breath again. Love is renewed after time apart. The more things change, the more they stay the sameness. Children naturally hyperbolize the world. From their novel point of view, they experience everyday life in a partial dream state. To a new mind, reality is a caricature of itself. The interior of the family car at night, with all its illuminated controls and aqua neon readouts, becomes the cockpit of a spaceship. The doctor's needle looks and feels like a harpoon, and Skittles really are pellets of solidified rainbows. And that unfriendly elderly lady down the street, with the overgrown garden from which you must uneasily retrieve your lost ball, is a terrible plant woman just waiting to ensnare you in tendrils, cast some wicked botanical spell, and plant your freckled little ass like cilantro. Personification is usually happy and lovable. Cats, chipmunks, cars, Kool-Aid, that sort. But what if a Kleenex were alive? Or a plunger? Yes, that kind. Can you imagine the violence and violation of life as a bowling ball? The dank, uneventful plight of a sentient gym locker? Next time you're having a rough day, just remind yourself, hey, at least I'm not a colostomy bag. When I was 5, I choked on a lemon drop. It happened in summer on the front porch of our house in Ocean City, New Jersey. I breathed in too hard while running around, and that little yellow cap turned into a death pebble. The front door had latched shut from the inside, and by then, my parents were around back on the beach. I banged and rang the bell, but no one heard against the loud wash of the ocean. The drop lodged in, and me locked out. I grew desperately faint and began seeing electric white dots floating around. At the last minute, the gods intervened. Earlier, our neighbor had accidentally dropped some things outside while taking down wash from the clothesline. Had she not come back to retrieve them, she wouldn't have seen to administer the Heimlich maneuver, and you wouldn't be hearing this. If I publish a memoir, it'll be titled The Socks That Saved Me. Seriously shaken, I had my first nightmare that evening. In my dream, I was in the basement of the house. A thin but opaque fog obscured the ground. It seemed like walking on wet sand, though, and I could feel gritty salt water coursing around my bare, reluctant feet. When I reached the center of the room, an area of fog cleared, and a faceless pair of eyes opened in the floor. Androgynous, intense, unstable. For a moment, they regarded me favorably and relaxed into a smiling, reassuring expression. Then, as starkly as my afternoon play had turned to peril, those grinning eyes turned on me and squinted into a threatening, sinister taunt, as if to say, "How'd you like that candy, Marty Pants?" I awoke like an exclamation point. I'd been sleeping in a bunk on the 3rd floor, so there were 2 sets of stairs between me and my parents on the ground level. In that state of wired fear, running down each step felt too slow to escape the disturbing afterimage pursuing me. So I jumped down both flights, one after the other, my anxiety covering the pain. Finally, I found Barb and Bob Graff in the living room watching a horror movie about killer ants. A consolation, really, compared to the trailer that had played in my mind. To this day, the ocean remains a positive, spiritual place for me. The age, and the size, and grand rhythms of the open water inspire me like no other setting. Immense and healing. On multiple coasts and continents, I've long stood breathing it in, tuning in to its ancient white noise, inviting the busy choreography of its sun-speckled surface to trigger vast, wondrous daydreams, feeling the full potential of my existence. But beneath the magic, there's a threat. A lethal undertow, swirling with pincers, stingers, carnivorous appetites, toxic industrial detritus, and that aquatic psychotic whatever it is that haunts my brittle confections. Some constructs are universally creepy, others innocuous. A couch is never unsettling, though you may toss and turn on a lumpy one crashing at an after party. No one's losing any sleep over campfire tales of a possessed sofa. But a creaky rocking chair, an antique doll, an old full-length mirror stored in a basement corner, the doll in the rocker, facing the mirror. No way I'm hanging out in that room. Diabolical typecasting in horror movies has surely influenced such reactions. The shower was just a place to scrub your armpits before Alfred Hitchcock killed a chick in there. These films also reflect our pre-existing associations. I mean, there's a reason why the victim in The Exorcist is a little girl versus a middle-aged cabbie. Why the invincible demon car in Stephen King's Christine is not a Volkswagen Rabbit. And why the Amityville Horror would be far less scary as a haunted yurt. Some boogeymen lose their edge through overexposure. Zombies are just fun at this point, appearing in video games, comedy, even romantic roles. We've seen so many 5-year-old pirates on Halloween that by the time we fully processed the threat of a real one, we'd already be kidnapped, duct taped, halfway to Hades in a human trafficking barrel. What will be the next iconic scare? Maybe something happens to make electric hand dryers chilling, but probably not. Perhaps it'll be stink bugs, abandoned malls, or hoarders. A condemned mall, infested with stink bugs, and overrun by the feral colony of the world's craziest cat lady. In any case, the perceived threat will be a harmless illusion compared to the pitfalls of everyday living. Blood pressure spikes at the thought of a rabid clown or a terrorist sleeper cell. But a person is more likely to get junk food diabetes, become an overprescribed opioid addict, or die of a meaningless, grinding job than to be alien abducted. No emotion so misplaced as fear. Have you ever dozed off during a movie, woken up during the credits, and been surprised to find you'd missed the entire film? Sleep sneaks up on you like that. Or a seldom opened desk drawer reveals an outdated driver's license, and you marvel at how much more taut you looked back then. Age creeps up on you like that. Maybe instead of an ID, that old photo is in a high school yearbook surrounded by signatures, inside jokes, and references to future plans you no longer recognize. Life gets away from you like that unless you pay attention. Cherish time and follow through, so that when you lay your head down the very last night, there's nothing left to dream. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming out. Now get out there and notice the world.